The winter storm arrived without mercy, spreading across the open ranchlands like a giant white curtain. Snow moved through the sky in thick waves, making it hard for anyone to see more than a few steps ahead. The wind howled across the plains and carried a cold that could cut through even the warmest coat. It was the kind of storm that made most people stay indoors beside a fire, but Mark was still out on the trail. Mark was a well-known cowboy in the valley. He lived on a large ranch and owned many horses, cattle, and wide fields. Because he had worked since a young age, people often imagined him as tough and strict, yet he was quiet and thoughtful. He liked to ride his wagon near sunset, check the fences, and make sure every animal on his ranch was safe. Even during harsh weather, he did not like leaving his chores unfinished. On this day, the sky had darkened faster than usual. Mark guided his wagon through the snowy path, urging his horse to move steadily. He hoped to reach the ranch before the storm grew stronger. As he rode forward, he kept his head low to protect his face from the icy wind. He planned to follow the fence line until it curved toward home, but the storm made everything look the same. Halfway down the trail, Mark heard a sound that did not belong to the storm. It was soft, weak, and almost lost inside the blowing wind. He pulled the reins lightly, slowing the wagon. He listened again. There it was, a faint cry, almost like the whimper of a small creature. Mark felt a jolt of concern. He knew the dangers of being alone in such cold. Even the strongest animal could lose strength quickly. He stepped down from the wagon, boots sinking into the deep snow. The wind pushed against him, but he moved toward the sound, following his instincts. After a few moments, he saw something curled near a fallen branch. It was a small dog, lying half covered by snow. Its fur was wet and tangled, and its body shivered as the cold attacked it. Mark knelt beside the dog. He lifted it gently, afraid to hurt it. The dog was light, and its breathing felt thin. Mark held the animal close to his chest to share his body warmth. He looked at the frightened eyes of the dog and said in a firm but caring voice, "Get in my wagon now." It was more of a promise than an order. He would not leave the animal behind. Carrying the dog carefully, he returned to the wagon and placed it inside his warm coat. He wrapped the coat around the small body, leaving only its nose free so it could breathe easily. Mark knew he had to reach the ranch quickly. The storm was getting stronger, and the cold was becoming sharper. He climbed back into the wagon and guided the horse forward. The path was almost invisible, but Mark had traveled the land his entire life. He trusted his memory more than his eyes. The snow slapped against his face as he leaned forward, checking on the small dog from time to time. The animal rested silently, too weak to move, yet it stayed close to Mark's chest as if it understood that he was trying to help. The journey home took longer than usual. The blizzard made everything slow and heavy. Mark felt his fingers grow numb, but he kept going, thinking only about getting the dog to safety. At last, he spotted the shape of his ranch house in the distance. Its warm glow shone through the storm like a small beacon. He guided the wagon through the front gate and stopped near the porch. The house door opened at once. Rosa, the housekeeper who had worked with Mark's family for many years, stepped outside. She held a thick blanket in her arms and looked at the storm with worry on her face. She was about to scold Mark for staying out too long, but the moment she saw the tiny dog wrapped inside his coat, her words changed. "Bring it inside quickly. It needs warmth right away." Mark carried the dog inside the warm house. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, spreading heat through the room. Rosa placed the blanket on the floor near the fire and helped Mark settle the dog on top of it. She examined the small injuries carefully. There were scratches around its paws and a little swelling near one leg, but nothing too serious. The real danger had been the cold. Rosa warmed a bowl of water and held it near the dog. It tried to lift its head but lacked strength. Mark gently supported the dog so it could drink a little. When it finished, Rosa dried its fur with a soft cloth while Mark continued to watch with concern. Then Rosa noticed something. She lifted a small collar from beneath the fur and looked at Mark. The collar carried a charm made from metal. The shape was simple, but the engraved symbol on it caught Mark's attention at once. It was a circle around a small mark that looked like a rising sun. Mark stared at it with surprise. He had seen that symbol before. It matched the strange marking found on an old wooden chest that had belonged to his father. The chest had been locked for years and kept in the oldest corner of the barn. Mark had always believed it held old papers and forgotten items that did not matter anymore, but the symbol on the charm stirred something inside him. It felt like a connection he never expected. Rosa noticed his expression. "Do you know this symbol?" Mark nodded slowly. "My father used to speak about it when I was young. He said it belonged to families that once worked together long ago, but he never explained much." Rosa looked down at the small dog again. "Maybe this little one did not cross your path by chance." Mark did not answer at first. He felt a strange mix of curiosity and responsibility. He had only planned to check his fences before heading home, yet he had found something that seemed far more important than a routine chore. He sat beside the dog, watching it rest, and wondered why a small animal would carry a charm connected to his family's past. As the storm continued outside, Mark felt that this moment was the beginning of something unexpected. The dog had arrived in his life during a dangerous night, but its presence might uncover a truth that had been hidden for years. And without fully understanding why, Mark felt ready to find out. The storm lasted through the night, but inside Mark's warm ranch house the world felt safe and calm. The small dog slept near the fireplace, wrapped in a soft blanket that Rosa had placed with caring hands. Mark sat in his old wooden chair, watching the flames move with steady rhythm. His eyes often drifted toward the dog, then toward the charm he had placed on the side table. That small metal piece kept pulling his attention, raising questions he could not answer. Morning arrived slowly. The white sky outside showed the storm had passed, though the cold remained sharp. Rosa prepared breakfast in the kitchen. The smell of warm bread filled the room. Mark, who normally enjoyed quiet mornings, felt restless. He kept thinking about the charm and the symbol engraved on it. He picked it up again, examining every detail. The circle and rising sun were carved with care. It looked old but well made. Mark remembered seeing the same mark on his father's chest when he was a boy. His father had mentioned it only a few times. Each time, his voice had sounded serious, almost protective, as if the symbol carried meaning too important to ignore. Mark had always planned to check the chest one day, yet he had never taken the time. Seeing the symbol again made him feel as if the past was calling him. But before he made any decisions, he wanted to check on the dog. The small animal lifted its head when Mark approached. Its eyes looked brighter than the night before. The dog wagged its tail weakly, showing trust and relief. Mark sat beside it and placed his hand gently on its back. The dog leaned into the touch. "Good to see you awake," Mark said in a calm voice. Rosa joined him and smiled at the dog. "It is getting stronger. I think it will recover soon. It only needs rest, warmth, and food." Mark nodded. He was relieved, yet his mind returned to the charm. He did not like mysteries, but this one felt different. It did not feel like trouble. It felt like a hidden path he had unknowingly stepped onto. After breakfast, Mark put on his coat and boots. Rosa watched him with raised eyebrows. "You are going to the barn, correct?" "Yes. I need to look at something." Rosa gave a knowing nod. She had lived on the ranch long enough to understand when Mark's thoughts were locked onto something. She did not ask more. She trusted him to share when he was ready. Mark stepped outside. The snow was deep but soft. The air carried the fresh smell of a new morning. As he walked toward the barn, he felt a sense of purpose. Something told him that whatever was inside that old chest might explain why the small dog carried the same symbol. The barn door creaked open with a slow sound. Inside, the air was cool and filled with the familiar scent of hay and old wood. Sunlight entered through small gaps in the wooden walls, creating bright streaks across the floor. Mark walked to the back corner, where the chest had been stored for years. It sat there under a canvas cloth, untouched since his father's time. Mark pulled the cloth away and stared at the chest. The symbol was carved on its center, matching the charm perfectly. The sight tightened his chest with emotion. It reminded him of his father, a man who was quiet like him but always carried a sense of hidden stories. Mark lifted the heavy lid. Inside were old letters, maps, and documents. The paper showed signs of age, but everything had been kept neatly. He picked up the nearest letter and unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was familiar. It was his father's strong and steady hand. The letter spoke of a group of families who had once formed an alliance to protect the valley during times of hardship. These families supported each other through storms, shortages, and emergencies. The symbol represented unity and trust among them. According to the letter, the alliance had slowly dissolved after disagreements and changes in land ownership. But the symbol remained a sign of the bond that once existed. Some families kept the charms as reminders of that promise. Mark set the letter aside and looked at a map next. The map showed the valley and surrounding ranchlands, with marks indicating the land once held by the alliance families. He recognized a few names. Some families still lived in the area, though many had moved away long ago. As Mark studied the papers, he noticed something that surprised him. The charm worn by the dog was linked to one specific family. The name was written clearly on several documents. It belonged to the Turner family, known for raising sheep on the east side of the valley many years ago. The documents mentioned that the Turners had moved away after facing personal troubles, but one line stood out. The charm will guide the bearer to the family that still remembers the promise. Mark sat quietly, absorbing the words. He wondered how a dog could possibly be connected to the Turner family. Had someone from that family returned to the valley? Does the dog belong to them, and if so, why would it carry a symbol tied to old promises? He felt a pull inside him, a need to understand the full story. He left the chest open and made his way back to the house. When he entered, Rosa turned toward him. Her eyes showed curiosity. "Did you find anything important?" Mark placed the charm on the table again. "Yes. More than I expected." His voice was calm, yet filled with thought. He explained everything he had read. Rosa listened carefully. When he finished, she looked at the dog resting near the fire. If this little one carries something linked to the Turner family, then someone must be looking for it. The charm is not something a dog would wear without reason. It was placed there with purpose. Mark agreed. The valley was wide, but the storm had brought the dog straight to him. It felt meaningful, as if fate had placed the animal in his path to uncover something forgotten. For the rest of the day, Mark stayed near the dog. He fed it small meals and made sure it stayed warm. The dog slowly gained strength. It wagged its tail more often and even attempted to stand. Watching the growing trust between them filled the house with gentle warmth. Mark looked at the charm again. Tomorrow, when the roads cleared, he planned to ride into the valley and see if anyone recognized the symbol. Someone had to be connected to the Turner family. Someone must have lost this small dog. Someone knew the story behind the charm. As evening settled and the sky turned gold, Mark understood one thing clearly. The storm had not just brought a dog to his doorstep. It had brought a mystery tied to his family's past and his father's legacy. And he felt ready to follow wherever it led. The sun rose slowly the next morning, bringing a gentle warmth that touched the snow outside. The storm had passed completely, leaving the entire valley covered in a bright white blanket. Everything looked peaceful, yet Mark felt a quiet energy around him. It was as if the world had shifted during the night. Something new waited to be discovered, and he was standing close to it. Inside the house, the small dog was awake and sitting up for the first time. Its tail moved happily when Mark entered the room. The sight brought a faint smile to his face. He had spent the whole night thinking about the letters, the maps, and the meaning behind the charm. Now he felt ready to continue the search for answers. Rosa placed a warm bowl of food in front of the dog, and it ate slowly, showing clear signs of recovery. She glanced at Mark. "You look like you hardly slept." Mark nodded. "I could not stop thinking about the chest. There was too much information, and I need time to understand it." Rosa handed him a cup of warm tea. then you should go through everything again. Something in those documents might lead you to the owner of that dog. Mark appreciated her calm advice. After checking the dog once more, he made his way back to the barn. The snow crunched under his boots with each step, and the cold morning air touched his face. When he opened the barn door, the smell of hay welcomed him again. The old chest still sat open where he had left it. Sunlight fell across its surface, making the carved symbol glow softly. Mark sat on a wooden bench beside it and pulled out the remaining documents. He wanted to know everything the chest held. The next letter he opened was written by his grandfather. The handwriting was older and less neat, but the message was clear. It explained how the alliance among families had once been strong. People supported each other during heavy winters, helped share supplies, and protected livestock. The symbol represented unity, trust, and a promise to care for the valley together. But as years passed, people grew distant. Some families moved away in search of better opportunities. Others argued over land borders or lost faith in the old system. Slowly, the alliance faded, leaving behind memories and a few symbolic charms. Mark read every word carefully and felt a strange connection to the history. His family had been part of something important. After reading several documents, Mark found a small notebook. It looked older than the rest. Inside were names, dates, and short notes about each family in the alliance. He flipped through the pages until he reached the one that held the name Turner. The Turner family was once known for their kindness and for keeping careful records of the weather. They lived on the east side of the valley and raised sheep. The notebook mentioned that the Turners always carried the charm during winter storms. It was a way to signal to others that they needed help or were offering help. A small line at the bottom caught Mark's attention. If a charm ever reappears, follow its path. It will lead to the story that remains unfinished. Mark read the line several times. It felt meaningful and urgent. He wondered what unfinished story the notebook hinted at. What part of the alliance had remained incomplete? What role did the Turner family hold? He turned another page and saw a small sketch of a cottage on a hill. Under the drawing were the words "The Turner Home." The cottage looked simple but welcoming, with smoke rising from the chimney and a fence around the field. Mark had never seen this cottage before, which meant it might have been destroyed or abandoned long ago. He put the notebook down and took a deep breath. He knew what he had to do. He needed to learn more about the Turner family. Someone in the valley must remember them. Someone might know what happened to the family or where the charm came from. Before leaving the barn, Mark gathered the documents that mentioned the Turner family and placed them in a leather folder. He wanted to take them with him when he asked around the valley. Then he covered the chest again, knowing he would return later for the rest. Back in the house, Rosa noticed the folder in his hand. "Are you going out to talk with people?" "Yes. I think someone in town will remember the Turner family." Rosa nodded. "Be careful on the road. The snow may still be deep in some places." Mark assured her he would take the wagon and move slowly. Before leaving, he checked the dog again. It wagged its tail and barked softly, a sign of growing strength. Mark knelt beside it. "I am going to find where you came from. You brought a story with you, and I need to follow it." The dog seemed to understand. Its eyes held trust, as if it knew Mark would uncover the truth. Mark stepped outside, hitched his horse to the wagon, and began the slow journey into the valley. The fresh snow reflected the sunlight, creating a shining view across the land. Trees bent under the weight of the snow, and the fences stood tall with white caps. As Mark traveled down the main path, he passed familiar landmarks. The old windmill, the frozen creek, and the large oak tree marked the way into the small town center. When he reached the town, people greeted him with warm smiles. Everyone knew Mark as the quiet but dependable cowboy who rarely asked for help. Seeing him ride in with purpose made a few people curious. Mark stopped near the general store and spoke with Mr. Allen, an older man who had lived in the valley longer than anyone else. "Morning, Mark. You look like a man with questions today. I am looking for information about the Turner family. Do you remember anything about them?" Mr. Allen rubbed his chin. The Turners lived near the East Hill many years ago. Good people. They moved away suddenly. No one ever knew why. Mark felt a stir inside him. Did they leave any family behind, a child or relative? I am not sure, Mr. Allen replied. But you can ask Clara. Her father used to trade with the Turners. She might know more. Mark thanked him and continued his search. He visited Clara, who was kind and eager to help. She remembered the charm symbol faintly and confirmed that the Turners had a strong connection to the alliance. Clara's voice softened when she added, I always believed the Turners would return someday. They had deep roots in this valley. If their charm found its way back, then someone from that family must be near. Mark rode home with a new sense of direction. The charm was not just a random object. It was a message, a sign that the past was rising again. And the dog, small and brave, was the one who carried it. That evening, as the sky turned orange, Mark returned to the ranch knowing that the real search had just begun. The story behind the charm was larger than he expected, and he felt that someone important would soon arrive, bringing more answers than he had imagined. The next morning arrived with a calm sky and golden light spreading across the snowy fields. The world looked peaceful, but Mark felt a mix of curiosity and expectation growing inside him. After speaking with the townspeople, he knew that the Turner family had played an important role in the valley long ago. The charm on the dog was a clue that someone connected to them must still be around. He felt certain that answers were close. Inside the warm house, the small dog moved around with new energy. It followed Mark from one room to another, wagging its tail and bumping its nose gently against his leg. Rosa watched them with a soft smile. She enjoyed seeing Mark so focused and caring, especially when dealing with the mystery that had come into his life. You and that dog have formed a strong bond, she said as she placed breakfast on the table. Mark looked down at the dog, who had curled up by his chair. It came to me in the storm. It brought something important with it. I feel responsible for it. Rosa nodded. Sometimes the right path arrives without warning. The day passed quietly. Mark cleaned the barn, fed the animals, and checked the fences. Although he continued his routine, his thoughts kept drifting back to the Turner family. He planned to visit the East Hill soon to search for the old cottage drawn in his grandfather's notebook. He believed the cottage might still reveal something, even if it had fallen apart over time. By afternoon, the snow had softened, and the valley looked brighter. Mark was repairing a wooden gate near the entrance of the ranch when he heard the sound of a wagon approaching. It was unusual for visitors to come without sending word first, especially after a storm. Mark straightened up and waited as the wagon rolled closer. A young woman stepped down from it. She wore a warm coat, snow boots, and a scarf wrapped around her neck. Her face showed a mixture of worry and relief. She looked around the ranch as if searching for something important. Mark walked toward her politely. Can I help you? The woman nodded. Yes. My name is Mia. I have been searching for my dog since the storm. Someone in town said they saw you bring a small dog home. Do you have it here? Mark felt a spark of recognition. This must be the owner he had been waiting for, the person connected to the charm. He gestured toward the house. Yes. The dog is safe and recovering. Come inside. Mia followed him, her steps quick and nervous. When they entered the house, the dog, who had been resting near the fire, jumped up at once. It ran to Mia with excitement and joy. Mia knelt down and hugged the dog with visible relief. I was so worried, she said, stroking its fur with gentle hands. Thank you for saving it. Mark watched quietly, feeling content that the dog was reunited with its owner. But he also knew this moment was important for another reason. The charm, the symbol, the chest, and the Turner history all pointed toward this visitor. After making sure the dog was comfortable again, Mia stood up and noticed the charm resting on the table. She gasped when she saw it. Where did you find this? The dog was wearing it when I rescued it, Mark replied. Mia held the charm carefully, her eyes full of recognition. This belonged to my grandfather. He told me that our family carried this symbol for generations. He said it was part of a promise made long ago, a promise between families to protect each other during difficult times. Mark felt his heartbeat change. He had waited for this explanation. You are from the Turner family. Mia nodded. Yes. My grandfather was the last Turner who lived in this valley. He left many years ago, but he kept telling stories about this place. Before he passed away, he gave me this dog and the charm. He said that one day I should return to the valley to find the family that still remembered the old alliance. Rosa, who had been listening from the doorway, placed a hand over her heart. It seemed unbelievable that a story so old was coming back to life through a small dog and a single charm. Mark took a breath and reached for the leather folder he had brought from the barn. He opened it and showed Mia the documents from his father's chest. Mia looked through them carefully. She studied the maps, the letters, and the notes about the Turner family. Her eyes filled with emotion as she saw her family's name written in old ink. I cannot believe these were kept for so long, she said. My grandfather always wondered if the Alliance families still remembered their history. He thought the promise had been forgotten. Mark pointed to the notebook page with the drawing of the Turner cottage. I think your family's story was never forgotten. It was waiting to return. Mia looked up at him with a soft expression. My grandfather wanted me to return here because he believed the valley needed the old unity again. He said the weather was changing, the winters were growing harder, and people needed to reconnect. He believed that the charm would guide me to the family that still cared about the alliance. Mark felt a meaningful stillness fill the room. He had never imagined that a simple rescue during a blizzard would lead to something this important. The alliance his father and grandfather had spoken about was not just history. It was still alive through Mia and her dog. Rosa stepped forward. Then your arrival is not an accident. It is a sign. Mia nodded slowly. I think so too. I came here because of the charm, and the dog ran off during the storm. I feared it was lost forever, but instead, it led me exactly where I needed to go. Mark felt a deep sense of understanding settle in his heart. He knew he had a responsibility now. His father's chest, the documents, and the symbol all pointed toward rebuilding something meaningful. Would you like to see the old Turner cottage on the East Hill tomorrow? He asked. I have a sketch of it. I want to see if it still stands. Mia's eyes brightened. Yes, I would love to. My grandfather told me many stories about it, but I never got to see it myself. The small dog barked softly, as if agreeing with the plan. That evening, they shared dinner together, talking about their families, their memories, and the alliance that had once shaped the valley. The past and the present blended together like pieces of a puzzle that finally matched. Mark felt something new forming. The return of the Turner family was not just a fact. It was the beginning of a renewed connection, one that could change the future of the valley. And it had all started with one injured dog in a storm. The next morning arrived with soft sunlight touching the snowy hills. The air was crisp, but the storm was gone. Mark prepared the wagon early because he planned to take Mia to the East Hill where the Turner cottage once stood. The dog, now full of energy, followed them closely, wagging its tail as if it knew the journey was important. Rosa handed both of them warm scarves before they left. The weather is calm today, but the cold can still surprise you. Keep yourselves warm. Mark thanked her and helped Mia climb into the wagon. The dog jumped in happily and sat between them. The path ahead looked peaceful, covered in fresh snow that sparkled under the morning sun. As the wagon moved forward, Mia looked around the valley with thoughtful eyes. My grandfather always said this valley was one of the most beautiful places he had ever lived, she said quietly. Seeing it now makes me understand why he loved it so much. Mark nodded. The valley has always been peaceful. My family worked hard to take care of it. Your family did the same. Mia smiled softly. I feel closer to my grandfather just by being here. The wagon rolled through open fields and past old fences. Birds hopped across the snow, and the trees swayed gently in the cold breeze. The dog barked now and then, excited to explore. After some time, they reached the base of the East Hill. From there, the cottage site was a short walk. Mark helped Mia step down from the wagon, and together they walked up the hill. The snow was deep, but the route was easy enough. When they reached the top, they stopped and looked around in silence. The cottage was no longer standing, but the foundation remained. The stones forming the outline of the house were still visible. A few wooden beams leaned to one side, worn by years of weather. Snow rested on everything, creating a quiet and gentle scene. Mia knelt near the foundation and touched the stones with care. My grandfather always talked about this place. He said the Turner family built this cottage with their own hands. He never forgot it. Mark watched her closely, feeling respect for the memories she carried. This place once held a family that was part of something meaningful. Now it stood as a reminder of the past and a symbol of what could return. The dog sniffed around the area, then stopped near a stone that seemed slightly tilted. It barked once and pawed at the snow. Mia and Mark walked over and cleared the snow away. Under the stone, they found a small metal box. Its lid was rusty but still strong. Mark lifted it carefully. Do you want to open it? Mia nodded. Together, they removed the lid. Inside were old photographs, folded letters, and a small fabric pouch. The photographs showed a smiling family standing in front of the cottage many years ago. Mia recognized her grandfather immediately. He looked younger, full of energy and hope. She held the pictures with gentle hands. These must have been hidden here before my family left. Maybe they planned to return one day. Mark opened one of the letters. The handwriting matched the style of the letters in his father's chest. He read the first line aloud. If anyone from our family or the old alliance finds this, it means the story is not finished yet. Mia listened with wide eyes. My grandfather always believed that. He said the valley would call us back when the time was right. Mark placed the letter back in the box. The charm brought you here. The dog brought the charm to me. It seems everything was leading to this moment. Mia looked around the snowy hill with a calm expression. Then we must finish the story our families started. They stayed at the hilltop for a while, studying the old photographs, reading a few of the letters, and talking about the past. Mark could feel the connection between their families growing stronger with every word. It was as if the valley itself was welcoming the Turner family back. When they finally made their way back down the hill, the dog walked proudly beside them, as if it understood its role in the reunion. At the wagon, Mark helped Mia climb in again, and they headed toward the ranch. On the way home, Mia looked thoughtful. I want to stay in the valley. My grandfather wanted our family to reconnect with this land. I want to honor that. Mark glanced at her. The valley would welcome you. And you would not be alone. There is enough land and history here for our families to build something again. Mia smiled at him with honest warmth. Thank you. Your help means more to me than you know. Back at the ranch, Rosa greeted them with relief. She listened carefully as Mia and Mark explained everything they found. Rosa held the metal box and shook her head gently. It seems the valley wanted the alliance to return. You two were meant to discover this. The rest of the day was spent sorting through the box, comparing the Turner letters with the ones from Mark's chest, and connecting the stories piece by piece. Every discovery brought new understanding, and every detail stitched the past and present together. As evening settled, the sky turned a warm shade of gold. Mark walked outside with Mia and the dog to enjoy the peaceful air. The valley stretched before them, wide and full of possibilities. The snow glowed under the soft light, giving the land a magical calm. Mia stood beside Mark, her scarf blowing gently in the wind. Today felt important. I think my grandfather would be proud. Mark nodded. Your grandfather kept the promise alive. And now we can rebuild it. The dog sat beside them, tail wagging, looking happy and at peace. Mark glanced at Mia again. I believe your arrival changes more than just your family's story. It changes mine too. Finding that dog during the storm felt like the start of something new. Mia looked back at him, her eyes warm and sincere. I feel the same. This valley already feels like home. As they stood together on the snowy ranch, the bond between them grew stronger. It was not just the charm or the documents or the history. It was the shared purpose, the shared discovery, and the shared hope for the future. The storm that had once felt frightening had brought something meaningful. It had brought a dog in need, a forgotten charm, a mystery from the past, and a reunion between two families. The valley had opened its arms again, ready for a new beginning. And for Mark, Mia, and the brave little dog, this was only the start of a much brighter story.